This revision video is looking at Christian responses to suffering. Now, two areas we need to look at here: how do Christians respond, but also how do Christians cope with suffering. Now, one thing that everyone will agree on is that life involves suffering. There's no two ways about that. And Christians look at it and believe that God is loving and caring and compassionate. But he also is aware of human suffering and cares how people feel. I mean, why else would he give us salvation? A chance to be forgiven and saved from punishment. Christians believe that they can communicate with God, and one way of doing that is through prayer. And what this will actually do and what it will actually help with is that through prayer God will give them strength and give them comfort. And sometimes actually God will answer their prayers. So if they pray for intervention in a situation, so for example if they're sick and they want to be healed, then sometimes God will answer those prayers and heal them. Whether those prayers are answered really comes down to the idea of God's plan. And if it was God's plan for you to be healed, then that's what will happen. But if it was God's plan for you not to be healed, then again that's not going to happen. And this does leave humans a bit confused really when you look at suffering in the world, because obviously if God is able to help, then why wouldn't he? But it is just humans' perception of God's plan and sometimes not understanding what God's plan is and seeing the good in God's plan, because obviously we're looking at it from a very human point of view. Especially if we're experiencing the pain and suffering, we might not understand that. Now, how do Christians get around this issue with God's plan and pain and suffering? Well, one thing they all agree on is that God works through all situations to bring about good. This may mean a person with illness is healed, but it also may mean that they may continue to suffer or even die. Either way, Christians believe that God is caring for the people involved. For example, faith may be growing in that person and bring them closer to God through that suffering, or even their suffering may give encouragement to others who themselves are going through suffering. So by not healing them, God could be still working out the best plan, what's in the best interests in the long run. Now, Christians believe God is able to understand human pain and suffering, and this relates back to the obviously crucifixion of Jesus and the pain he went through, because obviously that was God in human form. The Bible teaches that humans share in the suffering of Christ as he shared human suffering. Well, how did he share human suffering? Well, Jesus, which is God in human form, was whipped and crucified and actually experienced a very painful, agonising death. So Christians look at this and they will actually turn and say, well, okay, in these situations when pain and suffering, we need to be able to trust God. We need to accept God's plan, even if we don't always understand it. And actually, through that, we can gain strength and support from God, and even helps us to feel closer to God. A good quote to back this up is, God will let you be tested beyond what you can bear. Meaning, whatever you're going through, the pain, the suffering you're experiencing, God knows you can handle that, and if you have faith and trust in God, you will get through it. Think of the story of Job, how he didn't turn away from God, he trusted God and was able to get through it in the end, even when the worst things possible were happening to him. So a good example to use there.